One thing that usually escapes us is all the work that God has done on me and you to prepare us for His service before we are formally called or actually accept His invitation to follow. Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Friday. We have been looking at some of the callings in the Old Testament into God's service. We hope we can see those similarities to God speaking to me and you and calling us to follow Him also. One such calling came to a young Jeremiah when God wanted him to be His prophet, His spokesman. In Jeremiah 1 and verse 4, he said, "Then the word of the Lord came to me, saying, Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. I ordained you a prophet to the nations." Did you notice how the Lord introduced Himself to Jeremiah? Oh, by the way, I was the one who formed you back when you were in your mother's womb. And even before I formed you, by the way, I had sanctified you. I had set you apart for my service. God was using every circumstance in his mother's life in order to make a difference in him. But not only that, he was working on this young man's personality long before he was even born. I know we may think that we are developed gradually through life's experiences or maybe the environment in our home, the influence of our friends, perhaps even teachers in our school. And while those things may be used to shape us, don't forget that God was working on us before those other stimuli either had a positive or negative effect on us. So Jeremiah went on to try and tell God that he was not prepared for this task to be his prophet. He says, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a youth. As if God doesn't know everything about our life before He ever calls us into His service. God tells Jeremiah, don't say, I'm just a youth. For God had some great prophecies planned for him to bring to the people. He was even going to bring these messages to great leaders among His people in Judah. Now, we know the rest of the story, right? That not all of Jeremiah's messages were received well. In Jeremiah chapter 38, he is even placed in a pit because Judah didn't like the message he gave about them being judged at the hands of an enemy king for their disobedience. Jeremiah is actually referred to as the weeping prophet because of his compassion for his people who refused to heed his warnings, but they experienced God's judgment over and over again. We have to see that God has been at work in our lives to prepare us for our calling. He may give us a less than desirable job, like Jeremiah had, but He'll prepare us for it. No one has ever entered the service of God completely unprepared or not provided for with all that they need for that job. This is our reminder. We must not make excuses when God calls us to serve Him, but realize He is in ultimate control. He has already prepared us for this, and He will use us just as He has prepared all along.